Welcome to Gold Medal Business, the place to be if you're a children's activity and sport entrepreneur who is serious about growing and scaling your business to six-figure success and beyond. We talk growing your team, growing your students and your venues, and so much more. I'm Katie Cannon, former 5 times British gymnastics champion turned 7-figure entrepreneur. Are you ready to get started? Let's grow your business. If you're brand new to our community, welcome. I'm Katie Cannon, founder of Gold Medal Business and former 5 times British gymnastics champion. And exclusive industry here, exclusive support just for you, the children's activity entrepreneur. Now, we're streaming on different platforms. If you see me looking in different directions, we're on Instagram, so give us a wave wherever you're tuning in from. And we've had loads of new people joining our community, so it's always great to welcome you, to share this with you. If training is resonating with you, and it's resonating with you to a point that you're like, I want to share this with, maybe it's your franchisee, your franchisor, whether it's your business partner, whether it's someone that you know wants to start a children's activity business, then please share the love, because sharing's caring and all of that. And the main mission of our community is creating more CEOs in the children's activity space, meaning more powerful businesses that are running with your passion, that are running with you, but thriving without you. So today I'm going to share with you a little bit of a personal story, really. I'm going to take you a little bit on a journey, because I'm going to share with you, we often talk about the ups and the downs of recruiting team members, and the ups and downs of, the good times when it goes right, the bad times when it goes, wrong, not having enough staff, how to recruit the good ones, how to recruit, how not to recruit the bad ones, the structure, the process, and everything in between. And I wanted to share a little bit of a story with you today on very much a scenario that happened to me. I'm going to take you through the story because it kind of will share with you exactly the ins and outs was a moment that hit me. I was longer than that. 12 years into business, and I want to share this with lots of love to you, that if you have experienced the ups and downs and you may be 6 months into business, you may be 12 months into business, and I'm sharing this with you if you're new to business, because I want to share with you, whether you're 1 month in or 50 years down the line, you're still going to have ups and downs. You're going to have things that are going really well, and you're going to have things that are going wrong. You're going to think you've nailed your recruitment process, but always remember, we're working with humans. So whatever we do in terms of recruitment, you will have, you can tick every single box. You can have every structure in place and a whole recruitment process, which we teach in our mentorship. But at the end of the day, you're still working with humans. So building your team is always going to have its ebbs and its flows. So I want to share with you a little bit of my personal story, because I could have let this just completely sidetrack me. And to be honest, if it had happened probably 12 months into business, without the support that you guys have now, it probably would have taken me down a lot quicker than it did. But this particular scenario that I'm sharing with you, it came off the back of COVID. And we were just preparing into COVID. I'm going to kind of give you a bit of a background of what this looked like 5 years ago. So we had condensed a business model. So we had gone from having a franchise model in schools. We had over 100 schools across the London area. We had multiple gyms. And it's almost as if we had, someone from up in heaven, my wonderful granddad, that I always say, is to share with us, or, sharing with us like, oh, this is coming, Katie. You need to do this. And you hear something or you think something, you're like, I need to do this. Now, us repositioning the company was the best timing, because it was right before COVID. And I look back at this journey and I think, do you know what? If that hadn't happened, where would we have been? Would we have survived COVID as well as we did? What would the business look like today? So as always, I love to share with you from in the trenches what worked and what didn't. So in this particular scenario, we had gone from multiple different sites. We were really condensing down. So we were changing our business model. We were making it more streamlined. We were making it more to a point that it can run without me. And we didn't need a general manager anymore. We needed someone who could be admin and sales because the role was changing. Within the next 12 months after this decision was made, sort of 12 to 18 months off the back of COVID, we were in the position again to rehire that role. But at this current time, the business had changed so much that we didn't need this position in the company anymore. So, kind of talk through the dates with you. January 2020, which seems like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? January 2020, we had a good sit down with my directors team and was like, where are we saving? Where's the model moving forwards? What's the strategy we need behind this? What's the key roles we need in place? And the reality is this particular person, it wasn't to do with their performance. They were fantastic. And it was really, really hard decision to make at the time because they'd been with me for 9 years in business. And believe me, before I started having this conversation, I was racking my brains on how else can I use them in the company because I didn't want to have to let them go. But the reality of with their skill set, there was nothing at that time. Probably fast forward now, 5 years on, I would have a role, but we're bigger companies. But at that time, there wasn't. So I wrapped my brain. I was like, the only thing I can think of is a redundancy package, which I didn't want to have to go down that route. I've only made 2 redundancies in 16 years of business. So I was like, oh my gosh, this was new to me completely. So I started working with a company called CRONER, CRONER, and we use them. We're not affiliated with them, but we use them on a regular basis for, anything with employment contracts, questions about HR, health and safety. They're a fantastic source. If you need that, just reach out and put CRONER or drop us a DM and we'll send you the link to them. But they're really good. You don't need a big fat HR company that you pay someone to sit there all day, every day. They're a freelance company. And whenever you need support, you reach out and ask them. So this particular person, I got some help because I thought in my head, this is going to go down redundancy. I need support. I need to know how to maneuver, how to do this in the professional way. As I said, this particular person, I adored them. There was nothing wrong with their work ethic, what they were doing. It was just the company was different than when they started 9 years ago and how they'd progressed. So we went down the line of we had to do obviously we had it all structured out. I had a first time conversation with this person, which I'll be very honest with you, I worried about for days. I had sleepless nights about it. And because this person meant so much to me, and I think of myself now sitting in this coffee shop. I did it in a coffee shop because I couldn't do it in the office because I knew I was going to get emotional. This particular person had seen me have 2 children and had really helped me. And it was a really, we were colleagues and friends, and it was really, really hard decision. Anyway, I couldn't get the words out. I think she thought I was sick or something because I was really emotional. I could not get the words out. In the end, I had to say, look, I don't have a position for you. I'm going to go down the line with you of redundancy, or I have a position for you that is, and said all of this was advised by CRONER. So I knew we were ticking the box. And we started having those conversations I was like, she could see her position had changed. So it wasn't a shock, but she'd been with us 9 years. So it is going to be a shock. Now I went to offer her another role. But the other role was not the salary she'd been used to, and it was not the hours. It was half of what she needed. So I didn't want to be like, okay, I've got absolutely nothing for you. Off you go. I was trying to find a solution. And this is where whenever you're in this scenario, you're going down the line of step by step on how can we find a solution together. You're not just, and this is where you have to be very careful when it comes to employment. I said, I am not an employment expert. This is why I recommend you use other people to do this. But making sure you're having those discussions, you're talking about the role, you're making sure not so much they're happy with it, but that you've ticked every box. You've had that conversation. You haven't just sent one email and said, this is what's going to happen. That you're basically entering into a consultancy with them. So anyway, we stepped through these processes and it didn't end very nicely at all, because then what happened? COVID happened. So we then I gave her a full 8 weeks notice within the role. She was then given a full redundancy package. But then what happened next? And I hope to God we don't have these conversations again. But obviously, I said COVID happened. Now, to be really honest, if I knew COVID, this conversation was in January. Her last working date was like March the 28th. What happened on about March the 20th? We went into lockdown. So she did her notice period, but because she'd been with us a long time, she then was entitled to furlough. Now, by all means, if I had known what was coming, I would have held off on that conversation a little bit more, because they'd been with me a long time. If I'd known what was coming, I would have probably held on to them for another 6 months so they could have that furlough, because they fully deserved it. But I didn't know what was coming. So then obviously the back of that came a flurry of a lot of angry emails, and at a time when, to be honest with us, no one knew what was going on. Who'd known of the word furlough before it even came out? We didn't know the processes. We didn't know how it was going to work. So I felt really bad at that point, not to dealing with a hell of a lot of emotions about the company closing for a substantial amount of time, having homeschooling from home, young children at home, dealing with a lot of stresses from home as well as work, all at the same time, as we all did in COVID. Are you ready for that next level of growth, and you're super serious about getting the level of support that you need? Then look no further. Our Your CEO mentorship program is open for you to apply to if you are insanely serious about growing your marketing, your team, your next level leadership. You're really serious about that next level growth and scaling your brand to your next vision and beyond. This is exactly the right mentorship for you. It's a 12-month mentorship which is completely tailored around your needs to grow and scale your brand in the children's activity industry. With over 100 years of experience in this program of myself and my team that are sharing weekly trainings of team successes, but also the one-to-one touch. One of the things that we're incredibly powerful and proud of our mentorship is it not only gives you the group element, but it gives you the high touch, the high nurture, and the one-to-one support that I know, after teaching hundreds of entrepreneurs, will really take you to that next level. So if this is something for you, I want you to book a call in the show notes below. Get yourself in front of our team so we can see if this is exactly the right fit for you, and to get you up and running and to start to see your business thrive. But I then had to go through a really strict process on emails. I said there was a lot of back and forth emails. There was a lot of angry emails from that party. I had to stay very much like, this is how it is. Again, all feedback, all advice from CRONER. And it then was going to go to like a tribunal case, which, to be honest, was not the way in a million years that I would have wanted it to go to. But I knew with the support, the guidance I'd had from CRONER to help me with this, it was never going to go to tribunal, because I knew I'd followed everything I needed to do. I'd ticked every single box. If I had, which many companies, I'm not going to name a few, many companies did this over COVID, when you were literally like, okay, wait, you heard some stories of people getting on Zoom and they'd be like, I'm sorry, you're all made redundant. And the tribunal cases were huge. The length of time to get a case to tribunal at this point was 18 months to 2 years. Now, I felt very safe in my decision because I had the right support on knowing that I had treated them fairly, because that was my main concern. I said they'd been with me a long term. I didn't want this to end in the way it did, and I didn't want it to harm them. But let's be honest, you're making someone redundant. It's never going to be a nice conversation. It's never maybe going to end in the way it did. I said it was the very first redundancy I've ever made. So it was one that I was learning from. learning from the ground up. And no one wants to have those hard conversations. That is by far the worst part of building businesses. It's having to have those hard conversations. But you, as the business owner and the CEO of your business, you need to act. If someone's not performing, if you've got an instructor, if you've got a teacher, if you've got someone in sales, if you've got a center manager, a head coach, head of marketing, whatever department, if they're not performing, you need to make a decision. If they're not fitting with the company's vision and where you need to go, then you need to make a decision. Very hard conversations, but you have to wear that hat. Because if you dwell on it and think, I don't want to have that conversation, your business, you've got the wrong people in the wrong seats. And in 12 to 18 months, you let it drag, it gets worse and worse, and it will infuriate you. Okay? So this story, as I said, it didn't end in the way I wanted to. See, we're no longer in contact. And I said, if they came to me now, I would absolutely give them a position because I have a lot more on offer. Coming into COVID, we didn't. It went dry for all of us, didn't it? We're not sure if we're opening gyms, classes, venues. What are we doing? But if they came to me now, 5 years on, 100%, we could work together to find something for them. But the reality of this story that I wanted to share with you is that was, as I said, on top of all the heaviness that COVID came with, that was probably my worst story in terms of staff, in terms of having to let them go, which ended in obviously in redundancy, having to pay them a redundancy fee, but of how it ended. I've got many stories. Obviously, I've been in business for the last 16 years. I've got many stories of recruiting the wrong people, letting people go. But this particular one will never leave me. There's many, and I really recommend, if you've been in business for a while, look back at the ups and downs of recruitment. There are times now when I look back at old photos and I'm like, who's that? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't remember that person's name because we've grown so much and hired so many people over the last 16 years. But this particular person, I will never forget because they were fundamental in my business.
Hi, my name is Amy Schweizer, founder and director of Tiny Troop Soccer. I'm so excited to join Katie in the Gold Medal Coaching Program. On our intensive day, Katie was kind enough to allow my director of operations as well as my assistant director to join us. We had 4 hours of one-on-one personalized coaching that was directly for our business. Katie is the first professional that I've come across that is focused on children's activities business. So that is what first drew us to her. After taking her Scale to Freedom Accelerator, I knew that this would be a great fit, and the Focus Day just completely solidified that. We're excited to work on our marketing programs as well as our affiliate locations. I'm excited to see what Katie has in store and how my business is going to grow. Thank you.
And this is one story that when I was sharing, and I always look at what content and training I want to give you, is I always want to pull from real life stories in the business, as well as the how-tos and the learnings, because it's in the stories that is so relatable. And no matter where you are in your business, prepare at some point, you will experience a similar scenario that I've gone through. You will experience, especially if you're moving fast and you're ambitious in your company growth, you're going to experience that quicker. If you're not experiencing the failure, we all have heard this a million times, haven't we? You have to fail to win. So if you're not experiencing all of these ups and downs and ebbs and flows with team members and having to have those really hard conversations, you're not failing quick enough. You're not growing quick enough. You will procrastinate and you will slow and, like I call it, bottleneck your business because you're growing at the speed that you are comfortable with. So I want you to take my story today with a little bit of comfort. I always want you to pop it in the back of your mind and to go, do you know what? Whatever stage of business you're at, whether you're 1 year or you're 16 years in or you're 50 years in, you've got the tool belt to know that you can get through that. I said it was a really hard time, especially through COVID, and it went on for 12 months of these emails back and forth. But looking back now, I haven't forgotten it, but it's made me a stronger CEO. And it's being able to think that if I ever have to have those conversations again, I can do it. So you're building your strength, you're building your armor for when these things come up. And like I said, with any decision in your business, when you're new, that a decision in your business might get you down for a week. Now a decision in my business gets me down. Maybe it's like a day, depending on what it is. Maybe it's an hour. Maybe it's a minute. But as you build, your comfort zone gets bigger. Your armor gets bigger. So you're able to deal with a lot more. And we call it, as I speak about a lot, your emotional capacity. You're dealing with a lot more in your business. So the things are not going to get you down. Like we say, when you first start doing press-ups, I love fitness analogies because they're so relatable to business. When you first start, you're like, oh my God, 10 press-ups, this is killing me. A month down the line, you're like, yeah, I can whack out 20 because you built your muscle. Business is the same. You're building your muscle in your skills, your tenacity, your persistence, your motivation, your confidence, your mindset. The list is endless. So if you need further support with building that, that inner drive, that inner confidence when it comes to really building out your team, whether it's just recruiting, whether it's dealing with tricky scenarios, or whether it is the all-round team building, I want you just to comment team so myself and I can get in touch with you, or drop us a DM so we can get in touch with you, have a conversation together to give you the skills that you need and to hear very much about where your business is at so we can customize the support for you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you've enjoyed and you've really got some great benefits, please share with someone you know or someone in the children's activity space to really support them in their growth as a children's activity entrepreneur. Please hit subscribe so we can hit more people and get more great value to them. Thank you so much for being part of our community. It's an honor each week to train and nurture you, and I cannot wait to hear all of your great business successes.